What is going on, everyone? My name is Boit, and I'm back with another tier list. Yes, it's tier list time again. However, today we're going to be doing things different. We're doing an average Joe tier list. This is a tier list for the average Joe, not an RTS sweat lord like myself. This is going to be about the gods, which are the easiest to play, that have the most power behind them while still being easy to play. So it's a very difficult balance to get this one right, but we're going to try and do it. I'm going to try and justify it. I've got a list here to go through, and let's go through the rankings first. So S tier is obviously just the best. Can't get any easier, can't get any stronger for how easy it is. A tier just means that there's going to be a little bit of problems that you have to overcome in order to have that strength. B tier is things are starting to get either a little bit too tricky or the god is a little bit too weak. And then, keeps on going down on that one, either too, more and more too tricky, too weak, etc. And then our final tier is, just too hard. Don't bother unless you want to really, really work at it. Okay, so our first god, and we are going to be starting at the top. Actually, no, I reckon we're going to be going across like this, because why not? So we're going to go in with Gaia here, and as most people will recognize, I am a big fan of Gaia. I think she's great. I think she's incredibly powerful in the current patch. She was nerfed, and she did get her Terma nerfed as well recently. But she's still really, really easy to play. She's got the best economy in the game. She's got a really, really powerful god path with Oceanus, Thea, and Atlas. And she can defend herself early really well with Caladria. On top of this, with that god path means she can either spam out Murmillos or spam out Contarius or do both. So you don't really need to fully take, you don't really have to go heavily into what unit compositions do I make. You can just make Murmillo, you can just make Contarius, and you can have a good game there. On top of that, you got the Dryads from Thea to get yourself those myth units out. And yeah, one small con for Gaia is that in order to get the maximum amount of benefit out of the god, you do have to be fairly active on the map to make those economic guilds or manors in intelligent places to get yourself that lush spread. All right, our next god here is going to be Oranos. Now, Oranos is in the D tier. Yes, he's in the D tier. He is... Basically, his positives are that he's got Oceanus and he's got Thea. He's missing that Atlas to make that big fat, well, I've got a big army, let me get rid of your army and then just go through and kill you. He's missing that. But yeah, he can go in for Murmillos. He does have the boosted tech to make his Murmillos a bit stronger. He's got Thea as well, so, Contarius, pretty good to use. He does have sky passages, which are absolutely amazing. And the scouting ability after you hit a unit is somewhat invaluable. Now, to get into the cons, well, even with those bonuses, they're not passive bonuses. They're active bonuses. You have to use them to get an advantage. You have to build the sky passages in a good spot. You have to react to the raids. Otherwise, you're just going to lose all your citizens on your gold mine, right? You then have to be able to quickly move the citizens from that sky passage into another sky passage to get them back to work again. He's just not an easy god to have success with. But that being said, you can just make those Murmillos. So it's not like there's not a route for him to have success, just Murmillos. He does have Shockwave, really good god power to either kill off a bunch of villagers you catch out or try and sway a fight in one way or another. So he does have some advantages. He's obviously not bad. I think he's a really strong god. He just takes a lot of skill and ability to get there. The next god on my list here is going to be Kronos, which I believe I left this one in D tier as well. Kronos is also in D tier. And the reason why Kronos is in D tier, actually, we'll go through his positives first. So Kronos does have a really, really great rush. So if you master this one, Husk Soup has got a great guide on it. It's a bit old, but it's still just as good. You can also, I think he takes you through Prometheus, but you can also go through Leto and make automatons. If you do this build, you will probably be able to increase your elo by quite a bit before you start hitting a wall where the players are going to be able to defend it. So if you do that, great. You might want to change your name occasionally so people don't realize who they're playing against and know to expect your Cronus Rush. But yeah, he can do that, and he does have a really, really good boom with an incredibly fast town center that he can get up, utilizing 2 manas and then building the town center. That's really, really good there as well. However, and the last thing that's good about Cronus is he does have Implode. Implode is still very, very strong, even though it has been nerfed, but it's very, very strong. And yeah, so his cons are effectively he doesn't have Oceanus and he doesn't have Thea. It's as simple as that. If Kronos had those 2 gods, I think he would be in the S tier along with Gaia because his boom is fantastic. And yeah, he's just missing that oomph. He's missing that power. So it's pretty simple to play, but he's just missing that power from those 2 minor gods there, in my opinion. And yeah, I think he's kind of sitting in this lower tier as well in the top level player, in my top level tier list as well at the moment because of that. But you can have some success with him, don't get me wrong. Next god on this list might come as a surprise to some, but this is Ra, and I'm going to be putting him in the C tier. He is pretty strong because you can kind of choose to just not leave your base, right? You've got your hunt, and then you can go over to your berries. You can grab husbandry, go over onto your chickens. Then you can go over onto your herdables, and you can farm, and you don't have to leave your base at all. Very, very nice. Happy days. He's got great favor income if you want to drop your monuments down and power them up with your pharaoh. You can get 3, 4, 5, well, probably not 5, but 3 or 4 monuments relatively early on in a game. Be able to spam out myth units or spam out reigns for a fantastic amount of economy or myth units. And he does have an incredibly powerful army, which can counter anything if constructed correctly. The big cons about this is you fall behind really, really fast if you don't nail your builds. You also need to really know exactly what units to build beforehand. Because if you're not countering your opponent's army correctly, well, guess what? They're countering your army. And it's not strong enough to sort of hold up against an army that it's not countering. You need to be building the right units, in other words. So knowledge of all of the gods and all of the matchups is really important to have success with Ra, in my opinion. And then following all that, while it's a positive on the one hand, I also think it's a con on the other hand, in that early farms are a trap most of the time. I want to get my rain down when I've got 30 plus farms on the map. My first rain. If I can do that, I'm happy. If I can't do that, I'm not so happy. So yeah, that's Ra. He is really strong. I just think he's a little bit tricky to play. I still think he is probably... he does have Sekhmet as well, which is a big, big boost to your economy. Just a nice passive bonus there. You just drop the Citadel down as soon as you hit the Heroic Age, and you can get out a lot more villages, get yourself to the Mythic Age faster. But yeah, he's sitting in C tier here for the average Joe, in my opinion. The next god here is going to be Isis. Isis is floating down here in the D tier as well. I've got her after Kronos on my list here. Now, Isis is a great god. I think she's fantastic. So don't let D tier fool you. She's got a great late game. She's got fantastic tempo play. She's got great myth units. Thoth can make up for pretty lackluster economy at points. But, yes, she does also have a decent barracks army, but you need really, really good macro to take advantage of that. So yeah, that's more of a con than anything. So let's get into the cons. Her chariot archers, she doesn't have Sekhmet, so she doesn't have the bone bows. So they can get caught out quite easily. Controlling these can be very, very tricky for a lot of players. You might not even want to use them, to be honest, unless you're going to be making the effort into actually controlling them. And that means shoot and scoot, spacing your opponent's army. That's really challenging. Yeah, like I said already, the barracks army is great, but it requires really, really good macro to take advantage of. You get your advantage from tempo, from the fact you're going to be able to get yourself to like 175 population before your opponent can if you're both spamming units at each other. You have a really powerful unit in Son of Osiris, but it requires some really, really good control and patience, especially with like having something there to just protect the Son of Osiris, whether that be a Migdol stronghold. Make sure your army's with him. You can't be losing this unit. If you lose this unit, you lose a lot of your power. And yeah, your powerful army is coming from your Migdols, which were recently nerfed, so they're at 500 gold now, which I don't think is actually an unreasonable costing on the Migdol personally, but it does mean you can't be aggressive with your Migdols anymore. You've got to be very careful with them. You've got to place them in smart places. So, for example, on your gold mine close to a town center, protecting both of those sort of situations. If you lose your Migdols, it hurts a lot right now. So that's why Isis is at the bottom. I just think she's challenging to play at the moment. That's all for the average Joe. I think she's still pretty strong. I don't know if I'd put her in. I don't know if I put her in the A tier anymore. She might have dropped to the B tier recently, just because she doesn't have Sekhmet, Chariot Archers, losing a lot of the like all-purpose power. The kind of generalist Chariot Archer no longer exists. It's more of a I kill off infantry units really well and I space everything else. So and I lose one important thing is I lose to cavalry really hard there. So you got to be super careful. Going along here, next god is going to be Set. And we're getting all the Egyptians out of the way here. Set is in my just too hard basket. Don't bother. I'm just kidding, but only the brave are allowed to play Set at the lower levels. I love Set. Set's my favorite god. Or at least Set is a god that I feel the most comfortable with playing. I do get bored of playing Set pretty quickly because I like playing everything. But yeah, if I had to pick a god that I'm most comfortable playing with, it's Set at the moment. He has some of the best timings in the game thanks to converting animals, reducing the walking time right. He's also got Sekhmet, which means he's got the Citadel to help out with his poor economy, and also making his timings get a little bit faster. The cheaper Migdols mean you can be a little bit more aggressive with the placement. Strong barracks army with the Chariot Archers is a really, really good composition, Spearmen and Chariot Archers. But the cons are macro is everything. If you have poor macro, you're not going to hit your timings. Your army is not going to win the fights and you're going to cry. If you miss your production cycles, you're going to struggle. So if you overproduce stuff and don't tech in the right spots, when by that I mean don't get the heroic age in or the mythic age in the right timings, you're not going to find those wins. You're really looking to get gold staves more so than anyone else. Otherwise, you're going to lose the game. And also, if you don't have the APM to manage conversions of priests, of animals, sending them back home to eat, you're going to have idle time on your villages, and it's going to be very, very tricky. So, yeah, I think Set is totally fine in this patch. I think he's still really, really strong. He may have actually gotten even stronger because I don't think that Set ever really needed a generalist archer. He's totally fine. He could basically function with just the barracks army. But now the Chariot Archer really good against infantry mean I'm really happy to go Chariot Archer Spearman, which is my composition I want to go anyways with this god. So I think he's really, really good. He's just challenging. Anyways, onwards and upwards. Poseidon is in the next one. This is going to be our first B tier god. Poseidon's sitting here because he's really, really simple. You build Hippias, you build Centaur, you go raid your opponent, you make their life really hard, they make mistakes, you find advantages, you get heroic age through Dionysus, click bronze, you win the game. That's your game plan. The cons obviously is he's just super reliant on Hippias and Centaur. So your opponent, if they know this, they can counter this really hard. And you're going to have to start playing a different style, which can be tricky. And you're going to be like, well, I'm supposed to be building these units, but you can't. But yeah, he's also very weak to fast myth units, which you might not see controlled too well at the lower levels, so it's probably not a big deal. Mass myth units you will see, specifically like dryads. He's very, very, it's very challenging for Poseidon to deal with those. At the moment, you're going to have to get out your own myth units. You are building Centaur, though, most likely, so you will have something there, but microing and dealing with all of that, very tricky. So that's your weaknesses. But he's in a good spot. Strong, powerful god, easy enough to play. Very, very nice. Next god here is going to be Hades. Hades is going to be sitting in the C tier at the moment. Yes, in the C tier at the moment, just in front of Ra. So Hades is great. Fantastic defensive god, has sentinels to protect you against anything early, so you got no real worries about the early game. He's got really great archers, which are going to be fantastic. You don't have to control them. You just need to put a front line, just attack move, and they're going to do everything that you want from them. And he's got one of the strongest late game army compositions with hoplites plus Toxotes, or hoplites plus Peltast, depending on what your opponent's building. You don't have to think too much, but you will have to micro them. So they are a little bit tricky. That's why he's a bit lower than you might expect for something as simple as this. His economy is very, very simple to manage as well. Now, the cons are he's got a really challenging build order. Now, you don't have to use this, but if you don't use it, you're losing a lot of his early game power. Which is the Vault of Erebus build. I believe Soup's put out a build recently as well. I'm going to keep throwing you guys over to him. I think he's got fantastic build order guides. He's doing God's work. If you watch my Hades gameplay, I've got a Vault of Erebus build, which is a little bit less micro-intensive, but a little bit less powerful. So you can check out some of my Hades games and try and work out what I'm doing there. The other cons are his army's really immobile, so someone like a Poseidon or an Odin player is going to be able to sort of run circles around you with their raiding cavalry, and you're going to start cursing at the world for how you're supposed to deal with cavalry. Can be very challenging to deal with that, so you have to get your walls up nicely, and that can be challenging and slow and make you slow and everything like that. And then finally, you have to sacrifice your economy for favor, which can feel bad, and you have to know when to do that. So that can be tricky. The next god on this list is Zeus, and Zeus is actually sitting here below Hades. Again, very simple economy, very similar to Hades because he has Bolt to bail himself out early game. If some sort of a myth unit or a hero comes forward to raid him, he can just bolt that one off and he can kind of be completely fine. He does have fantastic hoplites. They are a little bit tricky to use because, you can use their speed to go raid, but you also have to be careful to not get caught out. You can take out town centers easily with those hoplites, but you have to make good decisions as to when to actually go for those town center raids or what you're going to be doing with them. You have fantastic favor gather rate. All of the Greek gods that have got Aphrodite have got Hades and Poseidon have got great favor gather rate when they get there with golden apples, but Zeus gets it from the very beginning. You can spam out those god powers nicely. And you also have an insanely powerful Mythic Age hero. I didn't mention Hades or Poseidon's specifically because Zeus's is insanely good. Bellerophon effectively makes me, as a player playing against Zeus, not want to make any myth units. So all of those myth unit problems go away once you get to that Bellerophon. So you keep that in the back of your mind. You've also got Lightning Storm there as a really, really nice game-ending punch to go along with, say, a bronze or something as well. The cons are that in order to take advantage of one of his unique abilities, or two of his unique abilities in some way, the favor gather rate and the myth unit population, you need to make myth units. And knowing when to make myth units means knowledge of your opponent, of what they can do to deal with that. So you have to know how to build them, when to build them, how to put villages onto favor, when to put villages onto favor, how many villages to put onto favor. It can be a little bit tricky to make that work. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest con of Zeus. He's completely fine power-wise, in my opinion. I think some people will say he was nerfed with the Sarissa getting nerfed and Restoration getting a small nerf as well. I still think that, clicking Restoration 2 or 3 times in a game is going to be seen. I don't think you should worry about that too much. It's not that big of I don't think it was that big of a nerf to Restoration. But yeah, he's just, I think just the power is a little bit on the underwhelming side for the Greeks. They're still really easy to play. So if you want an easy god, These are the ones to pick up, but they are just that little bit underwhelming for that. Okay, next god here is Odin. So Odin going to be sliding in here just below Poseidon. He's basically very similar to Poseidon, but he's a little bit more tricky compared to the other Norse gods. So he's the same as Poseidon because he's got that speed. He wants to go into raiding cavalry. He's also very, very easy early on because he can outmass an opponent. So if you just get the first, say, like 6 minutes looking like a 1500 level player, you're going to be able to overrun most people at lower levels and win games by like 7-8 minutes with Odin just by sheer amount of units. And this all comes through because of his god power Great Hunt. So you probably want to use this straight away just so your villagers don't have to move early game. They just sit there on that hunt, getting a huge amount. You get the control, you move on to the next hunt patch, and you have a good game. He's also got ravens, which are really great to spot enemy weaknesses in whatever their main base is, so you know exactly where to raid. Forest Fire got buffed as well, so fantastic. Can get some good damage done with that. Now, the cons are that Odin doesn't have Forseti or Ulla, so his infantry can be a little bit underwhelming, and his other cons are, as much as I wish that ravens would respawn faster, they do not. They take 240 seconds to respawn, and if you lose both of them, you're waiting 8 minutes to get them both back. You get one back at the end of 240 seconds, and the other one takes 240 seconds on top of, and when only starts ticking once the other one respawns. So it's just like, it's a long time to get them back, and they die very quickly. So yeah, it's a difficult unit to use, so you don't want to lose it, but it dies very, very easily. Anyways, neither here nor there. Let's keep going. Loki is our next one. Loki's in the A tier here. Loki's army performs better than anyone else without getting any upgrades. His myth units spawn in battle to like sway the tides of a battle. Your opponent's going to be like fighting you going, he's got no myth units. And then suddenly you've got 2, 3, 4 battle boars, bunch of trolls. And then you go, oh, he's got tons of myth units. So yeah, he gets myth units naturally as well. Just by the fact that, you're getting tons of favor. So just keep spamming out trolls, spamming out battle boars, and you'll have a fantastic game with him. He's a little bit tricky on the economy, but you can get away with some dwarf market macro, so don't be afraid to just go for a whole bunch of dwarves over mine gold and then buy yourself some food or wood if need be. But, if you want to get into it a little bit more, you're going to have to figure out how to build those gatherers. It can be a little bit tricky. Another really cool thing you can do sort of from maybe like the mid-game onwards is you can use the cheaper berserk conversion thing to defend your self against any sort of raids, and then send those berserks into your main army and they can just come and help you out. Can be very, very powerful there as well, especially if you go for Forseti, Bragi tier. The cons are that I think Loki falls off a little the higher you get in ranking, just because defensive play can get really, really good. Players have gotten really good with garrison micro, and just being able to stay alive in general. So he falls off a little bit in terms of the actual sheer power, in my opinion. Still think he's really good, even at the top level, but just a little bit falling off. Not anything to be worried about. He's still just powerful. He's good. Very strong god. Next god is going to be Frey. Now, Frey is... I kind of was tossing up whether to put this guy in S tier or in A tier. Now, I want to put him in S tier on like a overall tier list, like a top level tier list, but I'm not going to do that for now for the average Joe one. I think I'm going to put him into the A slot. He is so close to S tier, but I'm going to put him into the A tier here. He's got cheaper upgrades. So this means you do not need to think about anything upgrade wise. You just see upgrade, right click on it and just say, thank you very much. Fantastic. I'm so happy to have that upgrade coming through. You've got fantastic defensive god powers with Gullinbursti and Asgardian Bastion, so that you can just defend yourself against pretty much anything. You can make some really, really greedy town center grabs, and be completely safe because of Gullinbursti. And you've also got a really strong wood-based composition with Huskar, Throwing Axeman, and Goatee. This is really, really powerful. It basically covers you against everything your opponents can make, with potentially the exception of some powerful cavalry compositions that might come at you. So you will have to get Herdman out if someone goes for those, or Berserks. They're both fine. He's also got, I don't know if this is an advantage or not, but or a con, but you got to be comfortable going very heavy on wood and gold. So much so that you can almost get away with having 0 villagers on food at a point in the game. So with Feast of Renown, this technology is really, really good. It gives you 1 food a second in your town centers and your hill forts. And effectively, I just spam hill forts. Now, I wouldn't expect someone lower levels to actually do this, but if you can get out all the hill forts, if you get out like 3 town centers, 5, 6 hill forts, you can kind of get away with 50 villagers on wood, 50 villagers on gold, and just spamming out wood-based units. Depending on what your opponent's doing, obviously. And I guess the final con of Freyr, and the reason why he's a little bit more tricky than, say, Gaia, is you got to build a lot of buildings. You have to build a lot of buildings. Otherwise, your buildings are going to get tied up spamming units, and it can be a little bit tricky. But yeah, he's sitting in this A tier. I expect a lot of low-level players to enjoy this. He's got an insanely powerful late game as well. And the Bergrizi or Rock Giant is very, very powerful. Next god here is going to be Thor. I'm going to pop him just a little bit above Loki, just on the fact that I think he's very, very easy to play. The only thing you have to learn, we'll get into that. So basically, he can go for just dwarf economy. So you put a decent amount of dwarves onto gold, and then you can just spam dwarves onto food and wood. And while it's not like as efficient as building gatherers, it's not enough to change a game, in my opinion. There's other things going on that's going to win or lose you the game. So you can just get away with that. Spam out units to your heart's content, not even caring if you've got resources in the bank for building out those gatherers, because you're just going to be building out dwarves anyways. Works really, really well. He's also got the really powerful Berserks, because he's got 4 Seti Bragi tier, similar to Loki. And sometimes you can actually get away with just spamming nothing but Berserks in an opponent. So you can be very, very simple. Just get that Berserk hotkey on lock and just spam it out as hard as you possibly can. The big con is that he does have a difficult build order. That is like the big con. So you have to learn that one. And with this build, you'll also be on the defensive. So you're going to have to not only learn this build, but also learn how to defend against the aggressive gods like Poseidon, Odin, Zeus to some degree. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but once you get it down, it's very, very simple. So you got to get through that learning process. It's going to take, I would say, 10 to 30 minutes to learn the build, and then it'll take you a little bit of hard losses to aggressive play to kind of work out how to get through that. But then you'll be starting to win games. It's very, very hard. So stick with it, and he does become easier. The next god is, we're going to go for Fushi. Now, these are the newest gods, and I don't really know. But I'm going to put Fushi in C tier. This is a big I don't know. This is one of the big ones I don't know. He's got really powerful pioneers. Kind of, if you remember the Slinger, the pioneers can get 1 divine damage as well. So there's a ranged unit that has 1 divine damage. Now, it is a 1.5 speed attack, so it's not 1 divine damage per second. So it's not as crazy as the Slinger, but it's a little bit more powerful than the Slinger anyways, because it's got a higher base damage. So good, bad, you can totally just spam these out and live the dream. He's got some insanely good timings with Peach Blossom Spring, plus like mixing in God powers. I can't remember if he's got Fey Beasts or not, but he does have some really good Mythic Age God powers to use. And yeah, Peach Blossom Spring is just you're like, okay, I want to go next stage. Let me just jump onto that and let me just get all the food in that I need. And I've already got the gold because I've got all the qualfu out. His Mythic Age heroes are insane and can carry you really, really hard if you get them out early enough. But if you do not, I've been noticing that they are dying very, very simply to players that are getting out the correct amount of ranged units. So it's not a simple win when you get to them, but they are still very, very powerful if you use them well. The real big cons of China is that their economy is hard to manage. Much, much harder than Thor's, or Norse's, I should say. And I don't think that Fuxi has a very, very good late game. I think that he also needs to use tempo to win. I don't think he's strong. I think he's really strong, but I don't think he is easy to play. Next god here is going to be Nuwa. And I think that if this was a pro tier list, Nuwa would be in the S+ column with no one close. The next strongest god would be down in A tier. That's how powerful Nuwa is. But she is challenging to play. And I'm going to put her up here next to Frey, next to Nuwa. Okay, so, well, not next to Nuwa. Nuwa's here. So the things that make Nuwa easy are Earth Wall. This helps you against early game, similar to, like, say, Sentinels would. Qualfu Hero helps you in the early game. Can't really raid or hurt Nuwa against with any sort of early game myth units. Fey Beasts is another one that I definitely know Nuwa has, and that erases enemy villages if you can use that well. Great Flood, that kills off an opponent's army if you use that well as a bunch of buildings. Can make them want to just leave the game when they see that. And the big one that helps out Nuwa a huge amount to be very, very simple is the auto build feature. So you can place buildings down inside of your favored land, and you don't even need to send any villagers over to do it. The easiest way to build this is to click a villager, click onto the resource that they're building, hold shift, and then build the buildings all in that one go. Bam, 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 and you're all good to go. Also, if you forget to build houses for whatever reason, you can just slap them down in bunches and they're all going to build up. So happy days. The Mythic Age hero for Nuwa feels a little bit stronger than the Son of Osiris. It can, if you use the special ability well, you can stun an entire army for 8 seconds. If you use it poorly, you can stun portions of an army for 8 seconds. And he also does huge damage from range. So he's very, very powerful in many ways. Definitely don't want to lose him in a fight, but yeah, he's great. The cons are obviously China has hard economy to manage. You've got to get the qualfu out. You have to prioritize that, but you can simply just auto queue the qualfu, send everyone onto whatever resource you want, wood or gold, and then periodically go over and just move those peasants off of wood or gold and put them over onto food. So you can do it that way. It's not optimal, but you can do it in batches to make it a little bit easier for yourself. So yeah, that's Nuwa. And finally, Shenong here is going to go at the top of C tier. A little bit more powerful than the Greek gods, in my opinion. You're getting free myth units, which is obviously awesome. You don't have to think. You just get them. Happy days. And he does also have that free, or that Haltu's Earth Wall. So early game is not a problem for Shenong to deal with at all. So yeah, you're going to have a lot of success with that. And I guess following on from that, he does have the farms, so you can kind of stay in your base and just farm if you want. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's the right play, but if you don't want to leave your base, you can. At the very least, you can go for a handful of farms and click the thing, but I do think it's better to just get the qualfu out at this point and then go into the farms later, especially once you get to the Mythic Age. You can get flood control for free. Just slap the farms down and then start dropping the god power down. And I think that's the right way to play at the moment, but that's a little bit more tricky than just staying in your base and farming. He's also got some incredibly powerful god powers to bail him out. That's a pretty big trend for the Chinese. They've got some insane god powers, very, very powerful. The cons are that his army is a little bit underwhelming, same with all of the Chinese, but he does have Tiger Cavalry and powerful Dao Swordsmen if you want to go through that god path. So that can be a way to play. You just got pure Dao Swordsmen with the the two, I can't remember what the gods are, but there's two gods, heroic and mythic, that get huge boosts to Shenong there. Apologies, I can't remember what they are, but you'll see them. I'm sure you'll see them. But yeah, the economy just really tough to manage for China in general, which is why they're in this C tier. I do think that they're strong. I'm not sure exactly where they are. I'm still gauging it for myself. I definitely think Nuwa's in a league of her own at the moment, but Shennong and Fuxi, I don't think they're awfully balanced. I think they're kind of fine. They might, maybe their god powers might feel a little bit strong, but there's ways to play around some of it, and there's other parts of these gods that are definitely weak. So you can have success against China at the moment. But this is my tier list for the average Joe. Let me know what you guys think about it. How much did I mess this one up? At your elo, what are you struggling at? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.